Hey, boys and girls, it's Mike, your host at Craft Beer Storm. How are you today? It is Monday. We got another awesome guest for you. We have Alex Snape, and he's the founder-owner of From The Tree Cidery. So we're getting into cider. It just goes along with everything else, right? The hard seltzer, the beer, and craft cider. It's fantastic. They're taking fresh apples from Massachusetts and close by, and he grows his own apples. A lot of good stuff. So, hey, listen, first, before we get to it, have you gone on iTunes? Give us a rating, give us a review. If you like what we're doing, I'd appreciate it. I'd highly appreciate it. If you can give us a rating, subscribe, that'd be fantastic. That's the only way we can get up in ratings and rankings and get ourselves out to more people. And educate them about craft beer, craft cider, hard seltzer, all kinds of stuff that people are busting their butt to make. So I'd appreciate it if you could do that. All right, so here we go. And we have Alex Snape here. He's the founder of From The Tree in Salem, Massachusetts. How you doing, Alex?
Excellent. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, I'm glad we connected. We had to reschedule a couple of times, but it's good to have you on and talk about what you're doing. It's very interesting. But tell me, how'd you get started, in the cider business? And
so it's been quite an interesting, long journey. I would need hours to really get into detail. I'll give you the abridged version. Really, I got into wine first. I met my wife years and years ago in Boston, and she loved wine, and she got me into wine, and I fell head over heels for her and for wine kind of at the same time. And I ended up quitting my job. I was working at MIT at the time, and her and I moved to Europe, and I kind of went totally into the wine world. And I got a degree in enology. So enology is the science of winemaking, and a degree in viticulture there, and kind of traveled around Europe and made wine in Germany and France and England, and kind of just got exposed to that world through the European wine lens. And I kind of just learned all about, it was more about learning how different cultures make wine. Everyone makes wine differently. It's not just the terroir thing, but everyone drinks wine differently and enjoys it differently, and there's different price points. And I fell in love with that cultural difference. And I kind of, at the end of that experience, I got my degree and kind of finished all my studies. And I tried to apply what everyone was doing there to myself. I'm from Massachusetts. I grew up next to an orchard. And I was like, it makes sense to go back to where I'm from and make cider. That's kind of how I grew up, and that's what every winemaker I just fell in love with, was just making a wine that represented who they were. So I just applied to myself, and it kind of clicked one day that cider made sense. Came back to the U.S. and got started. My wife and I got married. We did not go on a honeymoon. We just jumped right into making cider, and kind of it's a really detailed story from there, but that's kind of where it started. That's kind of how it happened in my brain.
Wow. What part of Massachusetts did you grow up in?
I'm from Hopkinton, so started the Boston Marathon is basically what it's known for, about an hour west of Boston. Okay.
Wow. That's so interesting. And you probably experienced so much in Europe. I love Europe. I mean, I lived in England for about 5 years.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I was there for almost 4.
Yeah, and that cider is huge over there, like in England, Ireland. It's like crazy, Magners and Bulmers, and it's really good. Scrumpy Jack, I remember.
Scrumpy is a real acquired taste, but if you learn, it's kind of like blue cheese when you first have it. At first you have a gut reaction that it's bad, but then you start to kind of love it over time.
I liked it, yeah. I mean, I don't know. And that's how I got into beer as well. I mean, I was there, and we had I never thought I'd drink like room temperature beer, but then I had the beer in England. I'm like, geez, this stuff is awesome. Like Fullers and
it's kind of like a
Badgers
new type of
awesome.
like a new type of music. Like at first you kind of don't like it, but then you kind of just give it a couple more chances, and then like I miss it too. I miss warm beer too. But the first time I had it there, I was like, this is not for me. And then when I left, it was hard to come back to kind of cold lager. But
no, it's just they're conditioned in the States by the big beer companies to have things ice cold. If it's too cold, you can't even taste the damn thing.
That's the point.
I made a stout, in my brewery, and as it got warmer, it got better. You could taste more, so it was good. But getting back to cider, I mean, so how'd you start the this current company? I mean, you started making cider, and then what happened?
Yeah, we started pretty small. Just kind of a small startup with a couple friends. They all had full-time jobs. I was kind of the only first person to really quit my job, my real full-time job. And we were just making, we got a bunch of barrels, and we were just making like 20 barrels worth of cider. We were, pumping it in and out of each barrel. We're fermenting in every barrel, doing kind of crazy stuff, putting it into 500 milliliter bottles, and just trying to sell it straight to distribution. We didn't have a tasting room or anything. And that was kind of going okay, but the 500 bottle format was real tough, and we were charging, it was like $9 a bottle was the price to customers. So it wasn't enough to support like quitting our jobs.
Yeah.
So we kind of evolved that into like saying like, okay, so let's talk to distributors a little bit. Like what can we do better? And they were like, first of all, consider cans, because it's kind of like, 7 years ago, it was like when it was really taking off. Second of all, like, don't use a black label, maybe a brighter label, and just think about that. So we started experimenting with doing some stuff that wasn't just super old school, traditional, wicked dry cider and barrel. I mean, I love that stuff, but I was like, let's play around. Let's have some fun. Let's bring it to some cider fests, some beer fests, and let's see how people react. And when we started doing really funky, weird stuff, people loved it like right away. And I was like, all right, let's continue to do the dry stuff. Let's start experimenting with stuff that we're just going to have a blast with. And that's really kind of became who we are, is just kind of really throwing crazy stuff in there, trying anything, and if not being afraid to make a cider that everyone hates, kind of just taking that learning from it and kind of rolling with the punches there. So that's kind of our evolution into kind of what we do now.
Wow. And I never made cider. We talked about it a little bit, but I made beer, but what's the process of making cider, just to educate everybody who's listening?
Yeah. Honestly, to brewers, it seems kind of easy.
Yeah.
Because we're not doing a malt really crazy. We're not doing crazy with hops. Sometimes we do hops with cider, but it's really much more like wine. You get fruit, you press the fruit, you get juice, you ferment the juice, and then you have cider. That's the real short of it. You don't really have to heat anything up. You, of course, have to either let it ferment wild or you have to inoculate it with a yeast. But other than that, it's pretty simple.
So you're saying you don't have to boil it or anything?
No, we don't.
Wow. So what happens with bacteria? I guess the yeast takes care of that, or?
Yeah,
and the alcohol kills everything?
This is another long tangent. I'll try to stop myself. Okay. But if you get fresh juice and you start fermenting it right away, you're going to be okay. E. coli, Listeria, none of that stuff survives over 5% ABV. So you're going to be fine. It's not something we worry about. We actually don't pasteurize anything. We never heat up any juice. We don't use pasteurization for stabilization. Our cider has never, ever gone above, if you get it like in the spring, our cider's probably never been above 60 degrees or 55 degrees ever. So it's kind of a unique part of it for us.
Wow. That's so interesting. But fermentation, people ferment anything. If you squeeze some juice out of a fruit, you could ferment it, pears, cherries, whatever, mead, right? Oh, that's honey. But that's very interesting. I never thought about that. I got to try that. Actually, I got to try it.
Yeah, it's the biggest thing is obviously don't use something that's been stabilized from the store. So if they're adding sorbates or they've done something crazy to it, the sorbates aren't going to ferment. You got to find juice that doesn't have sorbates in it. But as long as you do that, it's pretty easy to get started at home if you want to try like a 5-gallon batch.
Yeah, you just get some fresh apples and squeeze them.
Yeah.
Crush
It's
them.
going to be super, super dry. It's going to ferment all the way to dryness. So unlike a beer that you get this leftover malt that's going to balance the hops, that keeps it in balance. Usually if you make like a homebrew cider, everyone's like, wow, this tastes like lemon juice. So that's what's going to happen if you make it at home. There's going to be no residual sweetness. And that kind of catches people off guard sometimes.
And how do you combat that? I mean, like it's just going to be dry. Is there anything you can do or?
Yeah, so this is a tough part if you're getting into cider making, like as a home brewer, is if you like super, super crazy dry, then you're good. But if you want just a little bit of sweetness, it doesn't have to be super sweet like the big brand stuff, but just to balance it, there's a couple things you can use as a home brewer. It's kind of crazy, but stevia is not going to ferment. You could add a little bit to it, and it's going to be stable if you're just playing around with it. You could try to pasteurize it, but then how do you carb? So that's difficult too. You can use sorbates. So you add sugar, and then you would add sorbates, and you're going to have a stable product that way. But it's really, really hard as a home brewer to get a cider that's going to be off dry or sweeter, that's going to be stable, that's also forced carb.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. Very interesting cider.
Yeah.
And, like I said, it's crazy Well, it's becoming more popular here because of the gluten-free, right?
Yep.
It's like a huge alternative. Like people don't want beer, but now the spike seltzer too is getting crazy too. So all that beverages and
gluten-free is great. We're nothing we make ever has gluten in it. It's funny because wine's always been gluten-free, but it's for some reason people tend to go to cider from beer if they have any gluten-like problems instead of going to wine. So, but we make like a hop cider, so we use like a bunch of different hops.
Oh, interesting.
People always ask us if there's gluten in it, and we're like, no, it's just hops and apples. But yeah, everything we do is gluten-free.
And when do you throw the hops in, like at fermentation or after?
So we do a couple different things. We've done some ciders where we're kind of mimicking the East Coast IPA thing, where we're getting residual kind of haze because we're throwing it in during fermentation with specific yeast, and we're getting kind of that biotransformation that's keeping that haze, which is really cool. But we also do kind of our flagship, our most popular cider. We're doing all dry hopping, so we're throwing it in after fermentation's finished. And we're doing, usually we do like Mosaic, Galaxy, Simcoe, maybe a little bit of Cascade. And we find that comes out the best because you're not getting any of the bitterness from, heating up the cider. You're just getting the flavor and aroma. And that tends to work better in cider. You've already got a ton of malic acid backbone there from the apples. So if you were to add the bitterness from the hops, it can get kind of out of control. So we find that dry hopping works the best.
Dry hopping, okay.
Yep.
Interesting. And then you have a bunch of beer, and you opened the Salem location, I guess, right? But you also have another. I saw on your website. You have this big tent that I see.
Yeah, we have a big yurt that we built. That's up in Maine. So our tasting room and most of our fermenting and most of our production happens in Salem, Mass. But we're also we kind of got into a land trust. It's part of it's a Maine state land trust where we entered this trust with the state of Maine, where we're going to keep it as agriculture and we're going to maintain it as an orchard. And we're able to kind of become stewards of that land and build a little yurt on there. My wife and I built a yurt. And it's got a little wood stove in it, and I've got solar power and kind of composting toilet. And I go up there for about half the week, and I've planted about 200 trees, and I've grafted about 100 trees. I'm looking to plant eventually like another 800 or 1,000 trees specifically for hard cider production. It's a long, slow kind of passion project. It's going to take a while, but I'm really kind of I'm kind of loving doing the orchard thing up there right now.
That's so cool. Now, do you grow your own apples for the cider, or do you get it from different locations? Or
yeah, so right now so last year I had one apple that I grew because I just planted these trees, 2 years ago. They're just real young. It's going to take another year or two until I'm really
okay.
Right now we're using all local fruit though, so even though we're making like a good amount in Salem, we're still using, it's mostly Massachusetts. Some years we're 100% Massachusetts, which I love. Years where the crop is kind of like really bad, like if we got like a late frost in the spring, or we're having a problem with apples. Sometimes we'll get some from Maine. So sometimes we're Maine and Massachusetts, but it depends on the year.
Interesting. Must be really nice up in Maine, huh? Your yurt.
Yeah.
It's just, I
like the summer.
Cool.
Winter's fun for about 3 weeks, and then it gets a bit rough.
Winter, yeah.
But there's like a lot of snowmobiling, tons of ice fishing. There's stuff people do up there to keep busy.
Where is it in Maine? It's up where?
So it's in Acton, Maine. It's actually fairly close to the New Hampshire border, and it's about as far north as Portland.
Okay. All right.
So it's really not that far. It's about an hour and a half north of Salem, or maybe like an hour and 45 minutes.
Oh, all right. It's not too bad.
Yeah, it's about an hour west of Portland, Maine.
Okay. Interesting. Very interesting. And what do you see? Like, what are the challenges of the cider industry that you see? I mean, you're getting pressure from, because there's a lot of like Truly's, the big.
Yep.
Well, no, they're the spiked seltzer, but Sam
seltzer,
Adams makes. What do they make? They make the which Angry Orchard they make.
Yeah. So the Truly is, I think it's a Boston beer brand, and then White Claw is kind of the heavy hitter, and then there's a bunch of other folks in there too.
Yeah.
When that was really taking off last summer, I was getting a little anxious. And I had a couple spiked seltzers myself on the beach, and I felt a little bit better. I mean, they're excellent for the beach, and they're a great product, but they haven't really affected us too much because I think I just went to CiderCon about a month ago out in Oakland, California, and there's a bunch of there's really smart people that pull a lot of data on exactly what's happening. Where is the spiked seltzer drinkers coming from? And it seems to be coming more from the large domestic beer brands, believe it or not. More of the Coors Light, Bud Light drinkers are going over to the spiked seltzers. We're not getting a huge amount of loss in cider, even though they're kind of similar, because we do strawberry and pineapple, so you'd think there'd be a little crossover there. So it's not too bad. I think as far as what's kind of becoming competition or something that's really difficult for us, I mean, I don't know. I guess it's just the whole craft industry is like every year everyone's like, it's so saturated. And the next year everyone's like, it's so much more saturated. But I don't know. I think it's kind of good. I think it keeps all of us on our toes. I think it keeps us trying to come out with new stuff and try to make us as good a cider as we can, and keeps us all kind of competitive. So I'm not too worried about it. We haven't seen anything that's really been kind of pushing on us too much. But yeah, I mean, we're not a huge company, so it's not like it's something that would affect us anyway. But we've been okay. I think people that love craft cider, people that love craft beer, the seltzer thing doesn't really affect that market too much.
Yeah. And do you sell, I guess, most of your products sold on premise, or do you distribute it, or how does it work?
Yep. So we sell about, I think it's about 20% of what we produce on premise, at our tasting room itself. And then about 80% of it we're distributing throughout Massachusetts.
Okay.
And we've actually, shifted much more over to can sales for distribution than keg sales. We were heavily, 50-50 in kegs and cans, and now we're mostly cans. We're finding that craft cider for us is bars want, one case of our cider to have in their fridge, and the tap lines are still kind of dominated by the IPAs and the beer and stuff. So we're finding that, we're selling still quite a bit, but it's in cans.
And do you have a distributor? You self-distribute? How's that work?
Yeah, so we started self-distributing, which I loved because it made me appreciate how insanely hard distributing is.
No, I know,
It
I
is.
know.
It
These
is. It
guys
was
work
like at
hard,
first I was
man.
like, we will just drive this everywhere, and we had me and my wife and her Mini Cooper, and we were driving, half kegs down to Boston accounts, and it wasn't just the travel or the actual physical distribution, but the tracking all of the checks, getting businesses that are going out of business and not paying you on time. And so I'm happy we did that, but we've moved over into distribution after about a year of that, and now we're with 5 distributors in Massachusetts. So we're Berkeley, Boston, Merrimack, North Shore, and we're a bunch of other distributors there.
Mm-hmm. And do you do the canning on premise, or do you have somebody come in? Or?
Yep. Yeah, we used to use Ironheart, which I absolutely love. They were one of the most amazing companies to work with. Anyone getting into canning or starting up would highly suggest them. They were wonderful to work with. But after about a year, we're like, we want to start canning ourselves, so we got our own canning line, so we can in Salem.
Okay, great. Yeah, you need a canning line if you're going to do cans, and especially the volume that you're going to get out there. If it's 80%, you need to figure out what the
it's
just
hard
cost.
to make that leap
yeah.
for a small company to buy that canning line, but you do the math and it starts to make sense pretty quick.
Yeah. All right, that's cool. And what I guess do you have like a favorite cider of yours that you like, or? Because I see that you have different tastes and stuff
It's like picking a favorite kid.
That's what I say too. That's what I say.
Yeah. So my favorite cider right now is one called Hislop Hooray, which is like hip hop hooray.
Yeah.
It's not been released yet. I picked every single apple myself that's in the cider.
Oh wow.
They're from Hislop apples that were grown on our neighbor's orchard up in Maine.
Wow.
These Hislop apples are super, super tannic and super, super bitter. If you eat them, you really can't eat them off the tree. But when you ferment them and you age them in bottle, they really turn into something really awesome that's much more palatable. And the tannin, it's kind of like a really great red wine. You have this drying kind of finish. And I'm really excited about that one. So that's my favorite right now. I would drink much more of it if we had enough for me to drink and not get trouble for it. So.
And the carbonation from this, does it come from the fermentation, or do you force carb it, or how does it work?
So with this Hislop Hooray that we're releasing, it's actually something called Pet Nat, which is like petite natural, which is not like you're not even adding sugar to be secondary. The fermentation slows down so much at the end that you actually are watching the gravity of the cider, and you bottle it before it gets to zero. So it's really tough because if you get it just a little bit wrong, it can be way over on the carb. But you throw it into the bottle at a certain specific gravity, and then you let it finish fermentation in the bottle. So that's kind of how we did that one.
All right. Wow. Cider. Yeah. I mean, yep. I got to drink more cider. I like everything. I like beer, of course, and then wine. And, I like, I got to drink more cider. I got to get into that. I got to come visit you guys. I got to come down there.
I think it's a great thing if you're into the geekiness and craziness of wine, and you also love the experimentation and the all over the place of craft beer. So just kind of in between those two, you've got local and regionality of the wine world, but also folks like us are doing crazy stuff with jalapenos and pineapples. So it's kind of a cool hybrid of both.
That's cool. So if people want to come visit you, I mean, or learn more about you, where would they go?
Yeah, if you want to come visit us, we're at 108 Jackson Street in Salem, Massachusetts. We're open all year. Summer, like spring, summer, fall, we're open every day. Winter, we're open Monday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. October is wicked fun. If you want to deal with the craziness in Salem, if you've never been to Salem in October, it's awesome. Come, even if you're an adult in your 70s, come dressed up. It's kind of a blast. Summer's kind of a good season. Come visit us too. That's where you come to see us.
All right, awesome. Yeah, cider. So I appreciate you coming on, and I'm glad we could figure out a time, and you came on. I appreciate it, and
Sure.
keep going. Keep going with
Thanks,
your
man.
passion. I think
appreciate the talk.
I keep going with your passion. I love passionate people, and they do what they want to do, right? It's very hard, it's just society but you're doing what you love, so that's cool. I like it. All right, man.
Cool.
I appreciate you being on. We'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
All right, Alex. Take care. Yeah, it was Alex Snape. He's the owner and founder at Far From The Tree in Salem, Massachusetts. He it's just doing a lot of good stuff with cider. If you go on his website, farfromthetreecider.com, you can see a whole bunch of different types of cider. He's putting hops in cider. He's using some local ingredients, all kinds of fruit. Really, really interesting stuff. I got to go down there and see him. But he's located in Salem, Massachusetts, and appreciate what he's doing. He has a passion for it, passionate people doing what they want to do. This is so awesome. It's local. If you're in Mass, he has, go visit him, but also they have cans in the store, so check it out. Good stuff. All right, that's what I have for you today. Go on iTunes, subscribe, give us a rating and review. It's the only way we get up in rankings. And we're going to talk to you on Wednesday with another beer style. I'm going to go down the Great American Beer Festival list and pick a style and talk about it. There's over 100 different styles, and then they have subcategories. So there's a lot of beer to talk about. So come back on Wednesday. Friday, too. If you're around Friday, we have Craft Beer News. We talk about the beer of the week, beer news of the week, and the drama and everything that goes along with it. Just a lot of crazy stuff going on, but it's all good. Okay, that's all I have for you today. We will talk to you on Wednesday. Take care.